Welcome in. Today we're getting two topics for the price of one. We're going to be talking about sigils. We're going to be talking about manifestation sigils, and we're going to be talking about spirit sigils. So let's get into that. When somebody says the word sigils in regards to modern occultism, they're talking about one of two things: sigil magic or evocation sigils. Spirit sigils, or evocation sigils as I just called them, are used to get into contact with spirits. You will find them all over the place in places like the Lesser Key of Solomon, spirit catalogs, the Arbitel of Magick. You can find them all over the place. In modern books on the occult, you will find them. They are very common. If you're looking through a book and it's giving you a list of spirits and a sigil with a kind of a description of them, you're looking at a spirit catalog. I'm not really going to go into depth with spirit catalogs, but just know that you can use them for contacting spirits, and at some point I will cover that. However, the topic that I get asked about in the comments much more frequently is actually about manifestation sigils. So let's get into that one instead. Manifestation sigils are often really simple. They are a sentence that is turned into a spell by use of simplifying the sentence down into a picture. So if we fire up MS Paint, we can see that if I start with the statement of intent at the top, I can take that statement of intent, and the difference between them is in the first section, I'm just writing what my goal is. I'm not doing anything to it. And then I'm turning it into a statement of intent. This has me putting "it is my will" at the front and "while blessing all involved" at the back. The "while blessing all involved" at the back is specifically so that I can bind down actions not wanted, such as people hurting themselves, or so that I can keep things from going out of whack. I find "while blessing all involved" to be more helpful and usually more miraculously successful, I'm going to say, than "no harm done." I did yoink that from Frater Xavier. It's worked significantly well, so I've been using it ever since. Simple as that. Now, after we have taken our sentence and we've turned our goal into a sentence that we can describe as our statement of intent, we're going to remove all of the vowels and all of the repeating consonants. And we're going to do this because we don't want any repetition, and this is just kind of the method. We're taking everything and we are turning them into just a row of consonants that are non-repeating. Now, you could take this at this moment and simplify it even further by turning this into a, you could get rid of the W's if you have an M. You could get rid of the B, the D, and the P and just combine them into one super letter if you felt so inclined, because they're really just kind of the same thing, right? You can just get rid of P's if you have an R, or you can, if you have an F, you can get rid of L's. You could do that if you feel so inclined. I don't usually, until I'm going through it and when I'm trying to find if I have all my letters done. If I have all my letters added, the only one I will actually do most of the time is I will not write a W if I already have an M, unless I can do it to make it look simplistic, or, well, not simplistic, symmetrical. If I can make it look more symmetrical and make it look more artsy, then I'm willing to do it, right? So from there, we take our string of consonants and we turn it into a sigil. Now, your first sigil is going to look like shit. I'm just going to say it. Your first sigil is going to look awful. That's fine. It's more of an art form than it is a science. You will eventually learn how you like to draw sigils, and especially if you're not doing this on something crude like MS Paint, your sigil should and will look better than mine. That being said, I made this sigil in MS Paint, literally, and I'm just showing you the process. I went through after the fact and neatened it up a little bit. So on the left you have the sigil that I started with, and on the right you have the final finished sigil, which should be on screen. Now, after we have our final sigil, we need to find a way to program and, well, our sigil is programmed, but we need a way to activate our sigil, and we need a way to make it pop off, so to speak. Now, there are a couple ways you can do that. You can meditate on the sigil, you can put it into a candle and burn it. I think I mentioned that in the first video of this series. You can also do something which is called sigil bombing, which is when you get people who know what the sigil means to passively look at it or passively see it in their awareness, such as putting it into a thumbnail of a YouTube video. If this sigil looked familiar, this is why. Now, after you have gotten your method of charging the sigil, you go ahead and you take it, and you want to forget about it. You don't want to pay much attention to it because sigils are very finicky. Sigils are, generally speaking, you want to have as little attention put on them as possible. Sigils are one of those things where it really developed the reputation of you need to ignore your lust for results, and you need to not think about what you're trying to manifest, because sigils, by and large, are the most annoying things to work with if you're used to more complicated magic. What I mean by this is candle spells, you're going to remember when they manifest, but if you've done enough of them, they're not going to be like a big deal to you. Spirit evocation is almost always going to be a big deal, but it doesn't matter because if you're focusing on other stuff, it won't matter. Sigil magic, if you haven't done a lot of it, it's usually a beginner thing recommended to people that are just starting out with magic and who don't have much privacy, so it tends to fall into the beginner pitfalls, which I think is why people have a lot of problems with it, because it's not usually that bad, but it's bad enough to where, it's bad enough to where the newbie traps end up messing with you when you're trying to learn how to do it, so I would recommend you just be careful with that and don't worry too much about it. I recommend you make a couple sigils, make 20. And I know that's a lot. Make them over the course of 3 days. Make 20 sigils over the course of 3 days. Forget what they are. Make it so that you will always want them to manifest, right? Unless some miracle happens. Make it like some weird, wacky nonsense. Like you see somebody with a green suit and a purple hat, right? You go through, you do that, you have people show up with the green suit and the purple hat, and then that's all you do, right? You make that a sigil, you put it into your sigil container, whatever you're doing, wherever you're storing your sigils, because you should be storing them in some place that's relatively fine, right? And after you do that, you just manifest them. You just meditate on them, you just put them into a candle and burn them. I recommend meditating on them for 15, 20, 30 minutes and then burning them, burying them, getting rid of them in some safe way. Not throwing them in the trash. That's just magically that kind of messes with the energy because you're literally throwing it away. So make of that what you will. And the last note about sigils is that you should ideally be wanting to work on them regardless. You want to be, it's better if sigil magic is done for things you're already going to do. Like if you're going out shopping and you find better deals and you made a sigil for better deals, that's just good sigil magic. It's better if it's more it's a reasonable thing, or you're actively working on how to get it to manifest. If you're actively working on how to get it to manifest, that is generally decent sigil magic, and the sigil will just help out. But that's about all for today. Quick announcement at the end of the video where I made a sigil about helping my cash flow. Patreon in the description. There's some videos up on early access by the time this goes up. If you feel inclined to see that, the videos are going to be up there about 2 weeks before they go live. The first one's only going to be about a week before it goes live. That's how that's going to work. I'm going to kind of, the Patreon's going to get those first. All right? All right. Have a good rest of your day, and take it easy.